Hi everybody. I thought I'd take a look at materials and paints and things that I use when I paint today and show everybody that you really don't need to spend a lot of money to do a painting, and it doesn't take a lot of time to prepare your paints. Actually, preparing my paints allows me to make my paints last a lot longer, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Again, I can't say that you want to paint in my unique technique, but if you're having problems with acrylics and them drying out, and again, I use acrylics as glazes. I don't mix acrylics on the spot or on the fly and then wait a couple of hours until they turn into plastic. I keep my acrylic solvent for quite a while. So let's go over that. And before I do that, though, I want to go over a few of my tools. I guess you call them tools. First of all, just want to point out my paintbrushes. I use mostly round pointed paintbrushes. I have a filbert that I use once in a while. Ooh, this one's hard. I gotta soak this one. Anyway, I use a filbert, and then I have a larger filbert, and that's pretty much what I use on my backgrounds, my filberts. And sometimes I use the rounds, but a very large one like a number 9. And I just feather it in with my acrylics, which are mixed with a lot of water. So I rarely ever have to use one of these unless I'm totally washing something over a background just to give it a base. But anyway, let me put these back. And also, I just want to show you one thing before I begin on paints, is that those brushes are these brushes. This pack of all these brushes cost about $12. And if you get them on a discount, maybe $5 or $6. Problem with these, actually not really a bad problem, is the metal hosel to the wood falls off. But then again, for the price, I just keep a little epoxy on hand and I epoxy my hosels. The brushes that I use probably will last for, I don't know, 5 to 10 paintings. And okay, so let's see what else. I use alcohol. I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but either 70 or 91% alcohol usually cleans your brushes. And after you've switched it around in the alcohol, then you just can take a paint can, not a paint can, a coffee can. And I fill this one with water. This is the one that's filled with alcohol. Has an A on there just so I can tell the difference. Because again, I have an A and a W, right? And it's root beer, A and W root beer. But in this case, it's alcohol and water. So cheap coffee cans, water, alcohol, costs about $2 for a bottle of alcohol. And it's clean for the environment. Let's remember that. Here's a Dawn squirt bottle filled with alcohol. I have a Dawn squirt bottle filled with water. So what I do to clean my palette, which I'll go over in a little while because I got to get a closer shot of that, on my porcelain tray, is I just squirt it with alcohol if it's dried too much. Then I wait a couple of minutes, spray it with water, and then I take a paper towel, which is right down here, and I just wipe it off and throw it in my garbage. So really easy stuff. Here's a spray bottle I use. I use this when I want to put more water on my paints that are on my porcelain palette. And I also use it to clean off the palette and sometimes on the actual paper I paint on, but it's rare. So this gives me a nice spray. I can spray it in my paints just before I close them up. It gives them a nice coat of water. Then I put one coat of alcohol into my paints, and then I close it. And I'll show you. We're going to mix some paint right now. Here is a condiment cup. You can get these in a restaurant supply house. And here is the cap for that cup. So they fit together real nice. Gives you a generous amount of paint, whether you're working in Pasto or whether you're working in glaze like I do, which is pretty much 65% water, 35% pigment. So I'm squeezing my paint out of a tube. That's a tube of acrylics, which is kind of silly for me at this point. I'm thinking about switching over to fluid paint. They sell that now. It's not this. This is still thick paint. It squirts out. It's a lot more economical, but I want to get fluid paints, sort of like these Liquitex bottles, but they're still a little bit too viscous for me. So I'm going to get the fluid paints. Since I mix with a lot of water, it'll save me the water, like water's too expensive. Well, actually, clean water nowadays is. So let's get started. I'm going to mix a little bit of pigment. So let's do it like this. I open up my tube. I squeeze a little bit. Again, this is an empty cup. Squeeze a little bit in there. Let's just see if I can show everybody that, right? That's as much pigment as I use. Then I take my water bottle, which is this one, and I fill it like 1/3 of the way. So that's one third of the way filled. Okay, here I'll bring it a little closer. You can see the level of the water, and the pigment that I showed you before is in there. So I then take a brush that I very rarely use, which is the one that comes with that set that I just showed you, but I don't use these a whole lot. I don't like flats, I like filberts, but these are great for mixing paints because you can smash it in the water. So I'm just going to keep doing that, and just once in a while I'm going to pat it. I'm going to pat it like this. And then, let's see. Okay, then I'm going to show everybody. And I'll put my brush in my alcohol can so it keeps it soaked. And then, this is my paint. Look at it, it still shakes around. Okay, my paint is very thin. Now I work with acrylic paints similar to how watercolorists work with watercolor. I let the paint flow and let me show you, I'll be right back. Stay tuned. Okay, I'm back. I use this. This is 300 cold pressed watercolor paper. Again, Strathmore. Yeah, it's Strathmore. Arches they say is a better paper, but that's debatable. Anyway, I use Strathmore. It has a nice tooth to it. And then I do my drawing before I paint, obviously. And then I take this paper and I contact cement it down to a piece of foam core board, a piece of 1/2-inch foam core board, not 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch still bends a little bit. And I use a blow dryer right here. I use this while I'm blending with my brush because it blends the paint fluidly into each other, and I get a very, very feathered blend, probably as feathered as oil paints. So it takes a while to figure that out and get your hand and blow dryer in coordination with each other, but you can do it. So anyway, it goes on this paper, as I said. I contact cement it dry on a piece of foam core. It's dried instantly. Then I just put a really washy base coat down of maybe 2% pigment and 98% water. And I just put it over my pencil line so that particular coverage will seal my pencil so my pencil won't smear. But the cool thing is, if you take an eraser, you can still erase through it. So if you got a couple of really bad lines that you can't avoid, you can still take them out. So that's pretty much it. Let me see if I missed anything. Oh, I wanted to get into my porcelain tray. This is a porcelain tray. Okay? I have a clamp here. I clip on a piece of paper towel that's double folded over, and that's what I wipe my brush on sometimes when I want to get it rounded after I put it into the paint. And I do that. I mix all my paints right on here. The good thing is they last a while. If they don't, I still have them in the cup. I just put a little bit more on and mix another color. Okay. This towel in the background, see it? This towel is folded over. I use that primarily to really clean off my brush while I'm working. So there's a lot of things going on. There's paint, there's the towel on here, the porcelain tray, and again, my setup of all my brushes that are next to my desk, my little cans that have my other materials, and my paints. But the one thing to remember, or the most important thing to remember, is you don't have to use expensive equipment. And with this particular process, I still have paints in that palette right now that was covered over, which again is covered with a lid, but then I also use a piece of 1/4 inch plate glass to seal it really airtight. So after I do that and I cover that up with the cover, snap shut, and that glass, these paints, I finished a painting 3 weeks ago. These paints are still liquid. How many people can put acrylic paints out no matter how they keep it, with a sponge, with a blotter paper or whatever, and keep misting it with water, how many people can say that their acrylic paints last, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, a week? I don't think it's possible. I've tried it. So anyway, this is not for impasto painting, although you could put impasto paint in these cups and it will still last you a heck of a lot longer than if you put it out on an open palette, even with a cover on it. Anyway, that's about it for today because this video is getting too long. And stay tuned. I'm not sure if I'll give another tip in a week, but thereabouts. So happy painting, everybody, and we'll see you soon at Bob Brown Studio.